Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadia Bozeman. I am the business lead of Team 1261 RoboLions, and today I'm going to be showing you how to give elevator pitches to your local businesses. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be going over today. I'm going to start off with talking about what an elevator pitch is, followed by some general tips on how to refine your overall presentation. Then I'm going to go into some guidelines on what I would personally suggest you include in your elevator pitch. Then I'm going to give a pitch of my own and finish up with different ways to create an opportunity for an elevator pitch. So we have two different versions up here on the screen. I'm going to start with talking about the 30-second version, which is more your dictionary definition. And that's just a quick, broad overview of your business or in regards to robotics, your team that could be given within the span of an elevator ride. That is where the term is coined from because, in a business, elevators are where your top dogs and little guys meet up, and it's the perfect opportunity to get your ideas out there. However, the thing about the 30-second version is I actually don't give it that often. What I do give often is the 3-minute version, which is basically your 30-second version, but just more in depth, more in detail. And I'll go into the different scenarios in which you would see yourself giving these two different versions later on. But let's jump into some tips on how to improve the quality of your presentation. So the first thing that I would suggest is practicing in the mirror. This has a multitude of benefits, but the biggest thing is that when you first see how you look in a mirror, you're going to realize how uninterested and unenthusiastic you actually look during your presentation. So the things that you want to pay attention to and improve upon is your eyes. So maybe raise your eyebrows sometimes, squint them a little bit. This is going to show that you genuinely are engaged in what you're talking about and not just spitting out words that you memorized prior. It'll also, you'll see your body language and your body movement. It's really boring to watch someone that's still in front of you. So you want to try and move around a little bit, and that's just going to appear more engaged. The thing about humans to keep in mind is that we're copycat creatures. And we have a tendency to emulate emotion that we see. If you've ever heard someone say that laughter is contagious, or if someone's crying and they say, "No, stop crying. If you cry, I'll cry." That's because they have a tendency to see something and copy it. So if you appear enthusiastic and interested, then they're not going to match your energy completely because you're talking about robotics and asking them for money, but they will see an increase in their engagement overall. Another thing that you would want to do in order to prepare yourself is to record yourself speaking. You're going to hear a couple of things when in your recording, and the first thing and the biggest thing is your pacing. Now, sometimes people talk too slow. I sometimes have a tendency to talk too fast, and I'll get into pacing a little bit more in like 5 minutes or so when I get there. But it's really important to just remind yourself to slow down or speed up so that you don't create some sort of tension or anxiety in the person that's listening. You're also going to hear something about the content of your presentation. When you're just saying it out loud to yourself and listening to yourself speak, your presentation might sound wonderful, but then when you hear it back, you realize I talk about this way too much, or I used because 3 times in a row, back to back, and that sounded awful. So these are things you can pick up on when you're listening to yourself. Another big thing, and you've probably heard this plenty of times in the past when it comes to public speaking in general, and that is inflection. If you've ever, this is like a been there, done that situation for all of us, but sometimes there's a really outgoing kid in your class, but when it comes time for them, oh, Ma, I'm giving a class right now. Okay, I knew that would happen. Sorry. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, they get in front of their class. They get in front of their class, and they just become completely monotone, and they stand there and they're just still. You think to yourself, where did that outgoing person happen? And that's all because of nerves and anxiety. So inflection can help you, again, seem more enthusiastic, more interested, and everything just seem more natural. Another thing, and this is a huge thing to remind yourself about, do not write a script. When I get people to create their first elevator pitch, the first thing they want to do is pull up a Google Doc and go, my name is Nadia Bozeman. I'm the business lead of Team 1261. You do not want to go into that kind of depth for two reasons. Number one, your brain is going to try and remember everything you wrote in that script word for word, and that's going to trip you up so bad because you're going to try and remember that to every single little because, every single and, every single of, and so you won't be able to focus on your body language and how you look and how you sound. Another way that it's going to trip you up during your presentation is that you're going to try and remember the order so precisely that when you don't remember the next thing, you're not going to be trying to think about what's the next concept that I have to hit. You're going to think about what was the next sentence after this one. So it's just going to cause all kinds of trouble for yourself when you actually go out there and try to read out your script. Another thing, make eye contact and don't make eye contact. If you have a big audience to speak to, okay, then what I would do is kind of split up your eye contact time. So if I had 5 people in front of me, I jump from person to person, not in a consecutive row because then that looks a bit forced, but I talk over here a little bit, then go over here, then focus on this person, maybe back to this person, then over here. If you've got an audience of 1 person or 2 people, dividing up eye contact time is going to be really tough because there's not as many places to look. And eye contact can only last for so long before it gets really uncomfortable for both parties. What I would recommend is talk with them for a little bit, then perhaps look up as if you're trying to remember something, or gesture off to the side as if you're talking about something that's not there, or list off something on your hands, just so that you're not staring at them the entire time. But honestly, making eye contact for a prolonged period of time is way better than staring off into the distance and not paying attention to your listener at all. Another thing is to talk with your hands. If you're still, it's going to be a really boring thing to watch. If you're moving around a little bit, it increases just how much interesting it is by even a little bit, but that can go a long way. Remembering to smile. It's difficult to smile during your presentation because talking about robotics isn't an innately joyful thing. So when I say remember to smile, I mean before and after, when you're like meeting your listener and the people you're presenting with, because your humans in general, they're not going to remember the specific points you talk about. They're going to have a general idea about the content, but they would not be able to turn around and give the exact same speech. What they will remember, however, is how they felt during your presentation and the time that they spent with you. And that can go a really long way. Like, for example, related but kind of unrelated, people say that the best first date is something that's kind of exciting and exhilarating because that person will carry that feeling with them when they think about you. So the more amiable you are, the more that you're smiling and the more interested that you are in them, all of that will help increase in the way that that person views you. I talked about pacing beforehand. You just want to remind yourself, slow down or pick up the pace, and it's almost like a balancer, keep you grounded in your presentation. And last but not least, and I'm going to get a little bit mushy here, but have confidence in yourself. I know that public relations and public speaking and anything dealing with people that you don't know can be very anxious and tense. And it can be really hard to try and muster up the confidence and to believe in yourself. But you have to remember that, especially when you're dealing with other businesses, you are only a high schooler. And if you've been out there before, then you definitely heard someone say, when I was in high school, I don't even know what I was doing, but you're doing way more than I ever did. So you have that going for you. You have all the good cards in your deck. You just need to know how to use them. And just remind yourself that if things do go bad, if you do make a mistake, if anything, they're probably going to find it more endearing than anything else. Okay, now onto content and guidelines. For a 30-second pitch, it goes by so fast. So your intro and closing, you want to start with your name and end with your name because, again, they're not going to remember specific content. They're not going to remember the points you make. So what you do want them to remember is you specifically. So hi, my name is Nadia Bozeman. I'm the business lead of the Peachtree Ridge Robotics team in Suwanee, Georgia. Notice how I did not say robo lines. When you are talking with anyone in business, you want to try and stay away from terms that they won't be familiar with. So if you do want to say FRC, you need to explain it. If you do want to say first, you need to explain it, especially first, because when you hear first, you're going to think first, second, third, fourth. You don't want people to get tripped up and dwell on abbreviations or terms that they aren't familiar with. So dumb it down as much as possible. Use synonyms that would help them stay engaged the entire time. And then you're going to end with the same exact thing. And once again, my name is Nadia Bozeman from the Petrie Ridge Robotics team. It was a pleasure talking to you. You're going to go through your big ideas of robotics, what we do. You CAD build and program a robot every single year, and you have a business team that goes out there and tries to get money and mentors. Why do you do it? To inspire a passion for STEM, not only within your team members, but younger people in the community. What are you, your robotics team, and how can you help? You can talk about giving you money and them giving you mentorship. Obviously not in that way, but that's just to like help you keep up with what I mean by this. And this is appropriate for more spontaneous interactions. So when you just bump into someone, maybe you start talking about robotics, you don't want to reel them into a 3-minute presentation. And when it's a smaller audience, that is spontaneous. Getting into the 3-minute pitch, you're going to start with your name and an organization like last time. I'll get to the closing later on. But you will do the same exact thing, talk about the big ideas, but you're going to go more into depth. So when you talk about what you do and who you are, maybe you could talk about CAD, what you CAD with, programming, what you program with. You could talk about the electrical and mechanical engineering skills that you use. What are you? You could talk more about first. You could explain it. You could explain how the game reveal works and talk about competition and how can you help. You could talk more about the benefits that they would gain in exchange for the support that they give you. And this is more appropriate for larger audiences and when it's a scheduled meeting or an appointment. I have something here at the bottom. It's tiny, but that does not equate its value. This is actually a huge thing, and that's take care to mention the connection that you hold with your listener. This is a big deal because humans are kind of self-centered. Well, they are self-centered. You like hearing about yourself. You like it when people talk about you. You like talking about yourself. So if you really want to engage someone, the best way you can do that is talk about something that they are familiar with, even something about themselves. And if you're able to discuss something about their company that shows you did research or talk about them, and maybe you could ask some questions about it just to increase the personal relationship between the two of you, that'll really just go so far into the future and possibly help out you when they're trying to push this kind of sponsorship opportunity to their accounting department. One quick thing too that I want to mention is when it comes to sponsorships, I would recommend sticking to, if you don't have any contacts, sticking to smaller businesses, because when you get to a bigger corporation, it's harder to move up that chain of command. However, you can just walk into a small business and meet the owner immediately, so that's going to be a lot more effective. Okay, now for a pitch of my own. Some background information before I jump into this. We recently got a sponsorship from UPS, so that's kind of who I'm going to be speaking to today. A quick thing, if you are in business and you just heard that I said a UPS sponsorship, don't waste your time go looking for that because their budget just closed. I know I do the same thing. I go looking for sponsorships when I hear them, but the contact name is Mr. Rama, and you might be thinking, well, what's the connection between UPS and robotics? It was actually an in-team contact thanks to our build lead, Siddharth Prasanna. So he will be my connection that I talk about later on. Okay, so we can get started now. Hello, my name is Nadia Bozeman. I am the business lead of the Petrie Ridge Robotics team in Suwanee, Georgia. Today, I just want to introduce my team, what we do, and why I wanted to talk with you, Mr. Rama, and UPS specifically. The Robo Lions are a 501c3 tax-deductible STEM organization. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. But the beauty of robotics is that there's also a business subgroup, which is who I lead and represent. Business's responsibility is to go out into the community and try and attract the attention of potential sponsors. the sponsor support is critical to our team because they help monetarily fuel the aspirations of our team. But the STEM subgroup's responsibility, on the other hand, is to CAD, build, and program a robot from scratch. At the beginning of every single new year, First Robotics, the organization that we operate under, reveals a game reveal. And this game reveal entails not only the theme of that year's game, but also the objectives that our robot is expected to perform. So our team gets together and we collaborate and we try and think of ideas through the engineering design process of what robot we could create that would best achieve these objectives. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk with you specifically, Mr. Rama, is because I was given your contact by our build lead, Siddharth. As you know, Siddharth is our build lead, and he has done a wonderful job at leading the construction and design of our robot. He has been a critical part of our success in the past, and we're lucky to have him. Looking at our current sponsors, it becomes clear that our best sponsor relationships have come from in-team contacts, and that's why I believe that the Robo Alliance and UPS would be a perfect match. Now, in exchange for your support, we could compensate with strongly positive media attention in multiple different forms of recognition. For example, we could put your logo on our robot, on our t-shirt, and on our website. When we go to competitions, there are thousands in attendance, including mentors that could create working relationships with UPS. So that would be wonderful exposure for you. It also shows that you're a part of the community and that you like to get involved. This is where I'd end it. Then I'd pull out my sponsorship packet and show him where my contact information is and the different tiers that he could read more about in the sponsorship packet. And perhaps I'd ask some questions. Maybe he asked some questions, and we'd exchange some final words. Okay, now different ways to create an opportunity for an elevator pitch. The best thing on here is the Chamber of Commerce. It may work different in different counties, but the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce has a meeting every third Thursday of the month. And that's where we have the speed elevator pitches, which is where I give the 30-second one. And the beauty of the Chamber of Commerce is that this is a gathering place of tons of local businesses whose main goal there is to create relationships. So that's just going to increase the feasibility tenfold of you finding someone that will want to give you money or mentorship, any kind of aid whatsoever. Another thing is to call parents, clients, / gather in-team contacts. So just have your parents and your members' parents fill out a form at the beginning of the year listing either their company or maybe friends of theirs that work for companies or have their own company that would probably be interested in giving you some money. Then ask the parent to just, slip it in, talk to them, tell them to expect it. And that's when you can ask for the opportunity to give an elevator pitch. Another thing, emailing or calling local businesses. Here's the thing about that, is that I don't like talking over email or talking over the phone because it's very easy to ignore me. So what I would ask for first is I'd explain briefly the 30-second pitch perhaps about our about our team. Then I'd ask to set up a meeting. And another thing, last but not least, probably the most popular method among business teams is cold calling. I would not do this at random. I would research companies within the area and try and find something where a connection is a little bit more obvious, but really, any business will do. It's kind of unexpected, some of the people that are interested in sponsoring the team. But I would research as much as you could about who you're trying to build a relationship with and then pop in unannounced. That usually is successful. As long as it's a smaller business, you don't want to do cold calling to a larger corporation because, again, like I said before, you're going to get to the front desk, they're going to turn you down because there's nobody directly that could speak with you at that moment. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you for attending my session.
If anyone has any questions for Nadia, please leave them in the chat or Q&A, whichever works best, and she'll address those. If you don't have any questions, you're free to leave. We'll wait a couple minutes to see if any questions come in. All right, doesn't seem like any questions are coming in, so we're just going to end the session. Oh, wait, we got one question. Gina Dunlap said, what do you recommend to those that have new members who are shy?
Okay, yeah. Here's the thing about that is that I have one member who is extremely timid. She, you won't know who she is, so hopefully this isn't like infringing on like her personal stuff, but she cried in the middle of just trying to practice it because she couldn't get it down. You cannot force shy people to do it, especially if they have no desire to do it. But what you can do is start small. Make sure that they understand, first of all, their pitch. Okay, they've got a good pitch down that they're comfortable with. Have them practice a lot and try and get, especially if you're not close with them to begin with, try and get really comfortable with them so that they're comfortable around you as well. And maybe they'll present to you first, then add some more people that they're comfortable with. Then they'll present to you guys, and then slowly make the group of people that they present with bigger because you want to ease them into it. But it's kind of like exposure therapy. There's no way through it but just straight through it. So just, gradually increase the amount of people that they're presenting to, and that hopefully should really help out with that.
Viraj asked, how do you make your pitch stand out in competition?
In competition with other robotics teams or like at competition?
I believe they mean with like other teams, like in the case of like Chamber of Commerce, where there are other people.
Okay, well, here's the thing about that. If you're competing with other businesses, you're going to stand out immediately because you are a high school student. Every time I go to the Chamber of Commerce, even though we have been there before, we always get the opportunity to present in front of everybody for a prolonged period of time simply because we're high schoolers. So that's an easy way to stand out. However, against other teams, I'd say that the connection is the biggest thing because that's the fastest way to impress and get the listener to feel as though you really did your research and you are genuinely interested in a relationship with them, that this isn't some copy and paste thing. And it shouldn't be. So find a connection is what I would say.
Gina also asked, so would you recommend having both the 30-second and 3-minute version ready at any time?
Yes, 100%. So I would start off your members with trying to create a 30-second version because that's easier. It's also a great way for them to get more familiar with the team in general because as a business member, you need to know your team through and through. And then have them build on that 30-second pitch in order to create their 3-minute pitch.
Any other questions from the audience? Viraj asked, can you go over the parts of 30-second pitch again?
Yeah, sure. Okie doke. Okay. So the 30-second pitch, you're going to start with your name and organization. Hi, my name is Nadia Bozeman. I'm the business lead of the Peachtree Ridge Robotics team in Suwanee, Georgia. And today, actually, no, I would even skip over your purpose just to keep it fast. So then you're going to go into we're a robotics team. We're a high school robotics team. We CAD build and program a robot every single year. So that hits what are we, what we do. Now, why do you do it? You would say, we do it in order to fuel and inspire a passion for STEM within our members because they are the future, they are tomorrow. And we also want to outreach STEM to the community so that younger children know that a STEM career is possible for them. And then how can they help? You would say, this is the point where I'd pull out my business card or the sponsorship packet and say, this is my contact information. We seek or we accept any kind of support that you would be willing to offer. whether it be money or mentorship, or different people do different things. Maybe they could give you t-shirts or parts for free, like, oh my gosh, what is that called? An in-kind donation. That's how I would do that, and then end it again with your name and organization. It's really quick and it goes by way faster than you'd expect. So you really would not be able to get a lot of information in.
Gina also asked, what all should be included in a sponsorship packet we hand to businesses?
I can actually pull up my sponsorship packet right now really quick. It needs to be updated. This is last year's. But so the first thing that I would include is your mission, talking about your team, what you are, and maybe some of your accomplishments. You can see right here, STEM comes up a million times. FIRST Robotics comes up a million times. And also a little bit about your history. The first paragraph talks about how we're award-winning, we're STEM-based, our high school, when we were founded, and things of that sort. You can see a little bit more about history. First high school in the state of Georgia to be recognized with both awards, things of that sort. This is going in more about the history, and here we're talking more about FIRST, what FIRST is. And also this is talking about outreaching STEM. So that's just all our mission, getting them to have them get to know our team a little bit better. And the next thing that we talked about was the awards that we have won in the past, so that they understand that we've been successful and that we know what we're doing, hence Teens with a Focus. So that's just all of our awards. And you want to include a lot of pictures that say a lot about your team. Like, for example, here we have outreach. See, we've got an older member working with some younger kids through FLL mentorship. Then we've got our drive team right here. They're all girls, by the way, which is really great to see. And then also just collaboration and things of that sort, because what is the saying? Picture's worth a million words. Then we get into sponsorship highlights. We're going to talk about why FIRST and why robotics is so amazing and why it's so different from anything else that they could sponsor within the community. And that's when we get into, again, more things about STEM, more things about the future, and how, see here, studies have shown that FIRST participants are 4 times more likely to pursue a career in engineering, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just get them to understand that this is an investment, not just for their company, but for the future of America as a whole. That's like exaggerating slightly, but it's still true. Then, of course, you would want to include your sponsorship tiers in great detail. So every single thing that they would earn for any level of money, you want to include it. And then lastly, talk about what they need to do. This is very important as well, what they need to do in order to give you money or mentorship or any kind of aid. So you see here, I've got my email address, I've got my teacher sponsor's email address, and some more pictures so they get a better idea. And last but not least, again, super important to include in your sponsorship packet is the actual sheet that they can submit with their check. So here we have mail your completed form with check payable to, and here's all that information. And again, contact information, and they would just check off what box they want to sponsor us with, and they can complete this, make it typable too, because I've gotten this more digitally than I ever have been mailed to me. So make sure that it's something that they can actually type into. And another thing, I would make sure that you get their contact information so that you can email them this as well, because a digital copy is also really important to have. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit.
Okay, Viraj asks, can you go over the parts of a 3-minute pitch again?
Yes. Okay, let me share my screen again. So like I said before, a 3-minute pitch is basically your 30-second pitch, but a little bit more in depth. The depth that I would go into, and you can change this up according to your team, what you want to portray, because it's going to be different for everyone. Everybody's going to want to say a different thing about their team. But if you recall from what I was saying about the 30-second pitch, you have these 4 big ideas. What do you do? Why do you do it? Who are you? And how can they help? So when you are explaining what you do, you might want to go into a little bit more depth about your different sub-teams and the skills that they learn, and how these aren't just like tiny robots. They're 120 pounds and they can be up to the half the size of you, just to give them a good idea of the gravity of what you're actually dealing with. Why do you do it? You can find this on the first website, talking about STEM and outreaching of STEM and why STEM is so important with our future. So if you want more specific information about that, the first website is a great place to go if you really want to, touch the hearts of the person that's listening. What are you? Your robotics team, obviously, but this is the opportunity where I talk about FIRST Robotics, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. Talk about that it's an international organization, that you go to competitions, you have a 6-week build period, and you aren't just competing with people in your community or your state or your nation, but people around the world. And lastly, how can they help? Now, this isn't going to be much of an explanation, but you could say that why their support is so crucial, because your budget is like $70K a year and registration is $5K. This is an expensive thing to deal with, and we can't expect to have the parents shoulder all of that. So we look to our community to help fund that. And mentorship, we're only high school students. There's only so much we can learn. So support from the community is highly appreciated. And of course, the connection. Always, always, always include a connection if you want to stand out and make them feel like they are a part of this before they even decide to commit.
All right, any other questions? Looks like there are no more questions from the audience. Oh, wait. Gina said this has been very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone for coming and watching Nadia's a very informative presentation. It was very nice. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for coming to the first day of the symposium. Please come back tomorrow. We have even more classes, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.